Welcome to the Ship Creek Survivor Show, where we openly share our stories of being stuck up shit creek without a paddle, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny, but more importantly, we celebrate and share how we got out of our own shit creeks and got our lives moving in the right direction again. For those of you not familiar with the term stuck up shit creek without a paddle, it refers to situations, places, circumstances, and times we ended up in places in life we never thought or believed we would, but we did. And when we got there, we never believed we would get out. But somehow that happened. Shit Creek Survivors is about sharing stories, finding support, and realizing that even when things feel like a total mess, there is a way forward. I'm joined again by my friend and former police patrol partner, Dennis Kaufman. How are we doing today, Dennis?
Hey, good morning. Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am well. I get to be on here with you again. So we are, this is a good day. In our last episode, we discussed how we met our spouses. So, how we met our spouses, marrying our spouses, and the idea that anyone would be crazy enough to hang out with either one of us for the long run. As well as we also shared a couple crazy police calls. I discussed an individual who had decided to rip a testicle off, and
His
Mr.
own.
Dennis Koff, his own, I should have clarified, his own testicle off, as well as Dennis almost shooting a mannequin in the face during
Yeah,
that.
that was a good one.
Almost put a hole in the mannequin, so that's pretty funny. Now, today's episode is actually the final episode of season one. Can you believe that? That's crazy to
Wow.
me. I
Yay.
know. I
Cue
know.
the
We actually
clapping
did.
noise.
Yeah, we actually did it. Like we set a goal and took care of it. So I'm proud of us. I think that we should celebrate it. And
You should put in there like a little Monty Python, like the little characters that are all cutouts, walking and go, yay.
I don't know if my skills are there yet. Maybe one day we'll get like a producer or something like
All
that.
right,
But
all
for
right.
now, I'm doing my thing over here. And I thought since we had kind of gone through this my story from the beginning of being shot and kind of what I went through and how I kind of got better and all that kind of stuff. And throughout the season, the first seven episodes, there were a lot of mentions of a higher power or faith. And I thought it would make sense to finish the season off discussing faith and our journeys of faith. So I recently heard a story about someone who was struggling with faith and was talking to a pastor. And it kind of paralleled how I thought, especially about going to church or religious organizations and all that kind of stuff, because I really didn't want to go there to be told I'm a sinner. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to feel worse about myself. You know what I mean? I already know I'm screwing up here. And that really kept me away from going into church. I was doing everything else I could possibly do, but that was just something I didn't want to do. I had actually kind of crossed a little bit of a line, and I saw for a long period of time the people who were going to church as a lot of them as hypocrites because I felt like people were just showing up on Sunday and then, living their lives a totally different way. Now, I was in a bad place and I was going through a lot of pain. So I was always looking for problems, if you will. So this individual had the same problem. And he actually said it to a pastor like, why would I come to church to be told I'm a sinner? I already know I am. And the pastor said something back, and it really kind of clicked in this individual, and it really made sense to me. The pastor says, nobody comes to church to hear about what they've done wrong. You already know that. I don't care what you've done wrong. God already knows what you've done wrong. He doesn't care. He just wants your heart. And I thought that was just such a beautiful thing to be said to somebody in a moment where they were having to make a decision if they were going to go left or right. Why would I try this? And that was just such a simple, pure way of saying, you're welcome. And it kind of blew me away because faith is scary. You know what I mean? It's like you, you can't prove that God or your higher power is going to catch you unless you fall. But you know what I mean? But no one wants to fall, especially voluntarily. What if you don't get caught? So it's almost like risk versus reward. Like you're in the middle of your life, things are going good. You seem to have control over what's going on. The future looks bright, and you just think to yourself, "Well, I've got everything in control." You know what I mean? Why do I have to dig deeper into myself and all that kind of stuff? Everything's good. But what tends to happen is as people go through life and they start getting towards what might be the end, they start considering the fact that there might be a higher power. And one of the reasons that that happens, and especially to a person who, let's rewind a second. Let's say you're in the middle of war. You're being bombarded by artillery and you're in a foxhole, right? You've dug a hole in the ground to hide yourself. I have heard many stories about atheists who became very religious in that moment. Have you ever heard that, Kaufman?
Yes, yes.
And you think to yourself, why would that happen? And when I was kind of going over it in preparation for the episode, I was thinking, is it maybe because in that moment, the risk of asking for help is worth the reward? Meaning
Maybe.
you've got nothing left to lose.
Well, yeah, I think it's just the reality setting in. I mean, like that also plays into why it feels awkward to go to church earlier on when you're not really ready, I guess, or why you feel people are being judgmental to you, or why some people are judgmental at church. Because I mean, that stuff does happen as well. It's because we just, I don't know, we have this
We're
innate ability to
humans.
not want to believe that we're going to die. We want to be able to believe that we're going to live forever. And then once the
Right.
reality sets in that there is an end, somebody close to you dies, you start thinking about death more. I think we've all done that. If you've had to, grieve somebody, you will think about death more. And so that's when you start to kind of acknowledge what happens when you die. Like what do I really
Right.
think does happen when I die? And then I don't know. That's when your connection is the rawest, and that's probably when you're more open to start that connection.
That
I'm
makes sense.
just now starting to talk to God again myself. So my story is still in the writing phases, I guess. But I grew up religious, and I've always believed. But I think I just recently started talking to God again, really feeling it. So
Yeah.
wherever you are in your stories, I think that's just something to remember. Go to church for you. Don't
Yeah.
worry about what other people are thinking. Go there for you and your relationship with God, because
And the
it does feel good when you're there. You feel the fellowship, you feel everybody singing, you feel all the love. It can be infectious, and you'll find yourself right there involved with it
yeah.
if you just let your guard down.
I will clarify because I'm glad you did like where you are in your journey. I am nowhere near the end, or I don't think there is an end, to tell you the truth. I
Well,
am just now, last Sunday, my wife and I went to church, and it
okay.
started with her asking me, "Are we going to church today?" And I went, "Meh." And then she came back around 5 minutes later, "Are we going to church today?" And I said, "Okay." So we went to the new church. I don't like being around people. I mean, PTSD doesn't like me around people. I don't like being in a big group where I could be potentially vulnerable. I don't like sharing emotion like in big public places and all that kind of stuff. But like for the first time, especially since we've been doing this podcast, I was like, why am I resisting that? Is it the people that I'm resisting, or am I making them an issue compared to me just being maybe a little intimidated or confused or like scared of doing something like that? Because it's a weird thing. It's like
Yeah.
for me, I had to really establish my own personal relationship with a higher power before I could, and that has taken 7 years for me to get to where I am right now, having
Yep.
tried a new church this past Sunday.
And this is the first time you've gone to that church.
And it's the first time I had gone to that church.
Wow. Okay.
And
A good
yeah,
experience.
it was a great experience. It was insane, actually. It was actually overwhelming. I wasn't expecting much. I basically figured I'd get in there. I'm almost timing it. I'm like, all right, so they're going to sing a couple songs. That's probably going to get us to about 15 past the hour. Then there'll be a sermon, probably. And then there'll probably be another song. And then I'll be out of here. No problem. Right? And then during the first song, I bent over to my wife. I go, I'm a little jealous because she's been in church her whole life. She knows all the songs by heart. Like there's no stuttering in the words or anything like that. And they sound foreign to me. Now we go to like a Christian, like kind of non-denominational church.
Okay, I
So
was gonna ask.
I'm
I
not,
was gonna ask that because didn't
I'm not
you?
talking.
You said before you started out Catholic or grew up Catholic, right?
Yeah, my dad was born and raised Catholic in Glasgow, Scotland. My mom was born in the church, or was raised in the Church of England because she was born and raised in London, England. And I was
That's Catholic.
baptized. It's Christian. It's more Christian than it would be
Oh,
like
really?
hardcore Catholic. Yeah. Uh, and then so I was baptized in the Church of England, which is a religion, but it's a Christian religion. And so that's how I was baptized, or not baptized, christened, which I considered being baptized, right?
Okay.
I think I'm starting to find out that it's really strange the way that things are happening right now because I went to that church service and I was just like, whatever, I'll do the time. I hear the song, I don't know it again. I'm like, again, church isn't for me. And then Kate's singing it. I actually say to her, I'm jealous that you know all the
Yes.
words. And then the next song comes on, and for the first time in church, I actually knew the song. And I was like, okay, God. And then so I'm like, okay, well, I'll do a little dance. And it started like with a little kind of like sway, just barely moving side to side. And then it started with a little kind of like drums on the seat in front of me. And then it like I knew the words and it was dark, you know what I mean? And the music was really loud and I just felt like it was more private in that moment. And then I just started singing. And I was like, what the I almost said what the hell is happening? What the hell is happening? And then so I'm singing and I can't believe it. It's so like weird. I never even envisioned that would happen. And then, we're sitting there, we're listening to the sermon after the song, really great sermon, and somehow baptism gets brought up. I lean over to Kate and I'm looking at this card that they have, like, why are you here? Are you a first time person? Blah blah blah. Are you interested in furthering your faith? Are you interested in this? Are you interested in baptism? And I saw that and I had been considering it because now I'm confused. Have I been baptized since I was christened, or do I need to get baptized again as an adult, like an
I
individual?
went through this myself too. I was born and raised Lutheran. Missouri Synod is, and we were robed, so we called ourselves Catholic Light. And I know I was baptized then. Then I went through confirmation and did the acolyte and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Years later, trying to go back to church again, I went to more of a non-denominational church, and the girl I was with at the time, I don't know if we were married. It was my second wife. I think it was my second wife, but I don't know if we were married. She was starting to get into religion a little bit more. So we were going to a non-denominational Christian church, and she wanted to get baptized, and so I went and got baptized with her. But
Okay.
I had questions with that preacher and with my family, like my mom. I asked them, like, I was baptized when I was a kid, but I mean, is it like a slap in the face of that first baptism if I did it again? Is it something you can do or you're not supposed to do? I'm like, what's exactly what you're thinking? Like, what are the rules here that I'm supposed to be thinking about? And I got a very clear message from everybody, and I felt it in my heart too. It's like your personal relationship. It's almost just like renewing your vows in your wedding is a best way to look at it. Like you're just recommitting yourself. And then in this case, I was doing it with somebody too, and it was kind of part of our journey together as a couple going through it as well.
Yeah.
It all made sense, and nobody had any problems with it. I don't think anybody did. I don't think anybody should. So I think it would be the same thing for you. If you feel moved to do it, then do it. If it's going to increase your relationship, well, then do it. If it would work for you in your personal life, if it would work for you in your friendship, if it would work with you and your wife, why would it not work for you and Jesus?
And what was even weirder is like I'm showing her that piece of paper. I'm like, I'm interested in that. And she kind of was, it's the sermon's going on. So she's just like, okay. We're barely like whispering and like pointing at the paper and that sort of thing. They go through the whole sermon, and it turns out that they do baptisms once a month. And guess what they were doing after the service?
For baptism.
Baptisms.
Did you stay and
Isn't that
watch it?
crazy?
Did you stay
I
and watch
stayed
it, or
in,
you stayed? Yeah.
yep, I stayed and watched it.
How did it feel? Did you feel like moved anymore, one direction or another?
100%. I got to watch young adults make that decision. And when they were being asked by the pastor, it was like two questions. It's probably like, have you put all your faith in Jesus Christ, and is he your Lord and Savior? I think I don't remember the questions identical, but it's just like two clear questions. And everyone, when they said yes, was just so clear eyed. When you see kids or young adults on fire for their faith, it's pretty powerful because they're they're these young adults doing something that you're pondering doing it. I'm 41. You know what I mean? I'm like, maybe I should do that, and they are just jumping off the cliff with faith. And I'm like, wow, maybe I'm supposed to do that, and I think I'm going to, because I want to have a closer relationship. Because every time I like, my face has basically gone like, I take one step forward and dip a toe, and I usually come back a little bit, and then I dip the toe, and then it works out, and maybe I'll dip another toe, but that's good. I'm not
Yeah.
moving for a while. And then I'll be like, well, maybe there's something else there. Boom, and it's another step. And
And
then it just keeps being these tiny, tiny steps forward into these theories and like beliefs that I it's just crazy.
it's inexplainable. It's awesome. That's what the word was made for. It is
You know,
awe-inspiring. It is awesome.
it's unbelievable. That's what
Yeah.
it is. And so it's
And
really
almost
hard when you're,
unexplainable.
yeah, yeah. Because you're always wanting to rationalize things. Well, it's probably because I feel better because of this, and blah 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 blah. And it's just the more steps I take in this direction, although I'm always like dragging a foot almost, and I'm just trying. And the hard part about faith is like when you really kind of like start examining yourself. All right, well, God, if you think you can help me, I'll change this one thing. And then you do it and it works. And you're like, man, does
Yeah.
that mean I
But
need to take another step? And then it's this dance, but God's with you the whole time. It's like watching a little kid. He must just be watching us like we're just dumb little kids. You know what I mean?
that's
Just like,
probably true. Don't stick your finger in
yeah,
the outlet, dummy.
yeah. It's like we're going from one
Don't eat the
part.
apple, dummy. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're going from one place to another, and all he's telling us like, don't touch that, don't pick that up, don't do that. It's not good for you. Blah 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 blah. And my ass is like, well, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna touch this. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna do that.
And kids do exactly that too.
Yeah,
You ever babysit
yeah.
a 4-year-old? Hello.
Not yet, actually. I've got a 2-year-old, soon to be 2-year-old nephew, and a niece
It's
on the
coming.
way.
You'll see. It's coming. You'll
Yeah,
see. I've been babysitting our nephew. He's 4, a couple times here and there.
yeah,
Cute as heck. I mean, he's just a cute kid, but he can be ornery sometimes.
yeah. I guess we all were. I guess we still are.
Yes, exactly. That's your point that you're trying to make, and I think it's great that we're recognizing it and acknowledging it because that's what we need to be doing as humans to better our lives and make today better than yesterday, or let that to be the goal at least. I think your relationship with God or higher power, it has to be your relationship is similar to how you would be a grieving process or falling in love or any of those things. It's personal. Nobody
Yeah,
can
it's a
really tell you
relationship.
how you have to do it. There
Hmm.
are some guidelines, I'm sure. Like, with grief, you can't let the grief get you down for several years because then it becomes abnormal. But the initial part, you can't say you can only grieve for 1 month and then you have to change to acceptance. No, you're going to go through those steps your way you go through those steps. You're going to fall in love the way you fall in love. Nobody can tell you how to do it. You either it's love
Right.
at first sight and you get married and it works, then great, it worked. Nobody can tell you you did it wrong. Same thing with your relationship with God. Nobody can tell you you did it wrong as long as you're doing it. The only person who can tell you you're doing it wrong is God, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. So do you? Do you?
yeah, dude.
Uh,
Yeah,
there you go.
and it's just amazing. It's a story that just keeps developing, and you kind of like think, okay, well, based on where the course of this, it's going to end up over here. It rarely does. You're like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that'll
And
happen a lot too. That'll
so
happen a
again,
lot.
it is scary. It's like a trust fall. But I was curious, When the founding fathers set up the United States, they did say one nation under God.
Yeah,
Why do you
they
think they did that?
developed it as a Christian nation for the yeah. I mean, fundamental have a basic fundamental like good moral compass or something to
Yeah.
that.
It's
A basic
yeah,
outline of what's good and what's wrong, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, and having a higher power.
right.
You know,
Absolutely. So what they believed and they knew is that no human being would be capable of setting aside their own self-interest
there you
for the
go.
greater good. And what that means is they all had to basically, they all, if they were under God, they shared a ethical concept of what was right and wrong under a higher power compared to an individual saying, you're right, you're wrong, because that's always going to be a tit for tat. You know what I mean? Based on my view, I
Right.
look good in this situation. Based on your view, you think you look good in this situation, but let's look at our higher power and see where we might land here.
Yeah.
Like let's get
And human
humble.
fallibilities.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting that they were so aware based on what they had seen through history, where they had come from, the countries they had traveled from, just to practice religion freely. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But that's a whole different time in culture and society and societal views. We can't even hardly imagine what that would have been like to,
Yeah. Yeah, because they were
well,
being basically,
people are saying
they
they would
were,
leave the country depending on who gets elected. So maybe
yeah.
we do understand a little bit. I don't know.
But these people literally got in boats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is like not even a compass around basically. Like you're basically charting the stars and like trying to figure out and it is a journey of faith to get to this land that might hold the possibility of you being able to worship the God that you choose
Yeah.
without being told by the government or the kingdom that you're in who you have to choose and why you have to pay money towards the church, which is, basically supporting the government and how that makes you
Yeah.
closer to God. Like that doesn't work. You know what I mean? So it's just an interesting concept that even the founding fathers knew that no one was going to be able to set their personal ambitions and interests aside so that the country could grow as a whole and that that would be good for all. So I thought that was really kind of interesting if you look at faith and
Yeah.
history and why, the ethics of God have been used. And
Like, even though they say separation as church and state, it's almost like the breath behind the country was founded on religion still anyway. I mean, just to have that religious belief of good and bad, but and acceptance and forgiveness. And I think that's something that's being forgotten because it was come to America and worship whatever religion you wanted to, not just our religion, not just Christianity, not just the country's religion.
yeah, for
Wow,
sure. So again, we are
they're
not
smart guys.
the very forefront of like religion or anything like that. What we're doing is just trying to share with you how it worked in our lives. If this is not for you, that's fine. But
Yeah, we're not
we're
judging.
hoping, yeah.
Do you?
And if it's not time, it's not time. Simple as that. We all have our own stories, like Kaufman was just saying.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I did find when I finally took the fall is that I was really, really thinking, okay, well, I'm putting myself in front of you, God, strike me down because I know I'm guilty of a lot. And I found the difference between God's justice, mercy, and grace. So, justice is when you get what you deserve, mercy is when you don't get what you deserve.
Okay.
Grace is when you get what you don't deserve. And I was waiting for justice to be cast down on me, but I received mercy and grace. I
Okay.
received love and acceptance. I received help. I
What if that
received
is
hope.
justice? What if it is really justice though? What if
Maybe,
that's maybe
maybe.
that's God's justice?
But you really find out in that moment while you're waiting for that to come down on you, you're accepting that maybe this life maybe isn't about me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not the center of the world and I need to start acting like it.
That's not what my mom told me growing up. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And because of that, I was always waiting in anticipation of like justice, like, to be struck down. And I would spend all my time with God almost like apologizing. like over and over, God, I'm so sorry for this. God, I'm so sorry for this. I'm a sinner. I'm that. I'm this. And then recently, I felt it in my soul, like, why why do you spend all your time with God apologizing if he already knows what you've done?
Yeah.
And that's weird, right? It's like,
Wouldn't that kind of be bad in a relationship too? All they did was every time you saw him was say sorry. Little things,
yeah,
big things.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point.
It
That's a
just
good point.
just kind of dawned on me there. Throw it out.
Yeah, because that's not really a relationship, you know, like that's fear. But recently, instead of getting like really like, okay, I'm gonna get closer with God and put the blinders on and really focus,
No, that's not how it works either, is it?
I'm learning to kind of like let go and just be like, whatever happens is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
Then
I've
just control how you respond to it.
exactly, and that's a key thing. You just said respond versus react. I was reacting for a long time to life. You know, I have my blinders on. I'm going from point A to point B. You're in my way. You're getting. That's just a quick thing compared to a judged and calculated response. So instead of reacting, respond. What should I do here? And just kind of sit there for a second. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to fix it right then and there. Like, what's the best way to do this? Let's think it through. And yeah, and it just gets so there's so much to say, but the basic part of it is the beginning. And it's just putting your toe in the water and figuring out, is this something that could help me? And the only reason I feel confident enough to say that to you is because it helped me.
And that's
And
good.
you were talking about before the episode that you heard Jelly Roll say something. What was I?
Oh yeah.
Tip of
It
my
was just on the radio like yesterday, driving home from some the VA appointments, and he was talking about how he had some struggles in life, and how he was overcoming and coming out of jail, starting to get healthy, starting to get famous, starting to have some success. And he's like, why do I still feel bad? I forgave everybody. I don't have resentment anymore in my heart. I know I don't. I'm examining myself and examining myself. Don't have any resentment for the bad things that happened to me. So why do I still feel so crummy and so like not there? And the
Right.
answer was he hadn't forgiven himself yet. And I think it's a
Wow.
really, really powerful step that we need. And it's not an easy one either. Again, I'm great at giving advice and not taking it because I think I have a
Yeah,
hard time forgiving myself too.
I do too. And
Because
it's
that's
funny
why you
how,
say sorry all the time in your prayers. You're thinking about the bad things. You're keeping yourself in a bad place. You're not forgiving yourself. Forgive
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like it's scary to think, but it's almost like sometimes I've thought if I'm not apologizing, then uh,
They don't know
it
I'm really resentful for it, or I really resent doing it.
yeah. Um, it's also almost if you think about it, it's like the subconscious believing that you're not worthy. So if you don't actually believe you're worthy of forgiveness, there's no way you can forgive yourself.
Right.
And there's such weird things that we judge
That
ourselves
struggle
for.
that struggle could be personal too for whoever is going through. You need to decide how to
Absolutely.
forgive yourself. Like, you need to decide how to forgive your parents for some of the mistakes they've made, and just know that that they loved you some too. And you need to forgive whoever's wronged you, and know that they're human, and sometimes they're going to have some good days that are worth celebrating too. They don't have to be as close to you as they used to be because they hurt you, but at the same time, you can still celebrate them. You're not in competition with each other. Don't be in competition with yourself.
Mm, that's true. Very true.
Like you said, just
And
let go. Just let
yeah,
go of all of them. Just let
I'm learning. I'm learning. So as we finish up the episode, let's just kind of like look back really quick, if we could. The initial episode, I shared about how I was shot and how that injury led to PTSD. PTSD trauma couples with old trauma. So suddenly I had an old thing pop up inside of me that I was too scared to share with anyone or anything like that. Regarding an adult game, a friend and I were taught when we were 5 years old. He had been taught the game, and then he showed me the game. But we had then been told that we were sinners and that God wouldn't love us, and that our families wouldn't love us if they found out. So we kept it a secret. I kept it a secret for 30 years. And so I'm a police officer. I'm in Ferguson, Missouri. I think I'm serving the community. I get shot. I get hurt. Everything seems out of whack. I end up losing my job. I'm basically suicidal. And I end up in a 5-week coma. I have a near death situation where I actually was relieved of all physical, mental, and spiritual pain. But then I was brought back by my lovely wife, who was smacking me in the face, demanding that I breathe. She then had to teach me how to walk. I had to go through a stroke clinic. I didn't have a stroke, but because if you don't use your body for 5 weeks, everything atrophies. So we had some funny stories along the way. I tried to escape the hospital a couple times, all that kind of fun stuff. And I finally got to a place where I had to get sober, otherwise I was going to die. I was able to get sober because of a higher power. And because that higher power was able to help me, I kept moving through the AA program, which was my initial kind of like building of faith. And by God's grace, I haven't drank for now about 8 years. And I never thought that that would be something to celebrate because I was so shameful of where I had ended up. But now I'm so proud that I just didn't give up. And it's amazing that now that I look back at this journey, although I never would have chose any of this, being shot, being an alcoholic, PTSD, losing my job, not being in law enforcement, all that kind of stuff, I believe now that that bullet wasn't sent to hurt me. It was sent to free me from that pain that was inside of me from that childhood memory.
Wow.
I believe that if I hadn't been hurt, that would not have been resolved. And I believe it would have ate at me for the rest of my life. And I would have continued to drink to numb that pain until I would have ended up being an alcoholic, regardless of being shot or not. And that I would have had to eventually either handle this or I would not survive on this earth. And because God gave me grace and mercy, and He gave me time and chance after chance after chance after chance,
And
I'm
you
able
finally
to
were
share this.
receptive.
Yeah.
You finally became receptive to it. And now you found a new purpose. You rebuilt your purpose of why you're here and what you taking care of yourself, but you're also putting a hand back to help others. And I just want to say
Yeah.
bravo to you, brother. Bravo. I'm proud of you for
And
sharing all of this, man. I feel lucky that you chose me to help do this with you.
I couldn't imagine it with anybody else, buddy. We're in that car together for so long, and we talked about real stuff. You'll run
Yeah.
into a lot of cops, and you're basically talking to their ego the whole time. But once you get past all that stuff and you start really trusting one another, no one else would have been able to. And what's so amazing is that the way God works is all of a sudden I run into you, I give you, my idea about doing a podcast, and then you suddenly reciprocate. I've been talking, I've been,
Yeah.
examining my,
Just had like a little breakthrough with my religious cycles too. It's just like the
and
timing is perfect to do this when you're bringing it up. And then we game
perfect.
plan a little bit what we're going to talk about, and we start talking. All of a sudden, we feel a little desire to share a little bit more, or do something else, and it's just like we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing right now, and it feels good to do it, and it's helping you, and it's helping me. At the
Yeah,
end of the day, that's perfect. We get a couple more people in there that are getting some help from it, and that's icing on the cake.
for sure. That is the true equity in life is because I knew that I was lying there on the ground and I thought I was dying. I said I should have loved more people. And I don't think there's something more loving than sharing your scrapes and bruises so that another person isn't ashamed of theirs.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is God's not going to do stuff kind of like in your time. It's not going to be on your schedule. It's
Right.
not going to be anything like that. But all of a sudden, boom, He reveals like where the plan was going the whole time. And that's being able to reconnect with you. The first time I saw you in a very long time was where? It was at my dad's funeral.
Your dad's funeral, yeah.
Yeah, at my dad's funeral.
And I had just lost my dad and my stepdad, uh, about a year and a half apart from each other, about almost a year before yours. I understood a little bit what you're going through in that
Yeah.
regard. But yeah, but it was like we never missed a beat. I mean, it was just like we're right back to working in the car and just bullshitting again. And then even more so talking through these podcasts. It's almost like we never missed a beat. And it had been a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years.
It'd been like 7, kind of like,
Wow.
touching
Yeah.
base here and there and all that kind of stuff. But I was just so consumed with what was going on. And I appreciate your patience and always supporting me and
Yeah.
just saying,
Plus,
you know what,
you
I'm
moved
here
away
if you
from.
need me. Yeah, I moved away from you. I had to get out of there. But moving away was very healing. And we'll talk about that in the next season, I believe. The crazy thing I just want to put in front of everybody, and I want to put it in front of myself, is God didn't free me from the pain I was feeling inside, the shame and all that kind of stuff. He did not free me by touching me on the shoulder and it was gone. He freed me by putting me through
Wow.
more trauma, so that I had to attend to that secret. Whatever happened to me had to be on the same scale as that secret because it had to be saved in the same place. That saved my life.
It's crazy.
Crazy, right?
It's crazy that it happens that way, but it's crazy that you have that perspective of it and how it's healing you from that perspective of it. And that's just, like I said, almost unexplainable. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, we're just doing our best, right? And I appreciate you being so open about everything. And for anyone out there, if any of today's episode or any of the other episodes went up, it wasn't for you, that's okay. Okay, like that's perfect. You'll find out later on down the road by looking back at the road you traveled that all the dots connect, including the worst times. So, as we finish up today, please remember that just like we are sharing our stories, we would love to share yours or one that you know. For season 2, we'll be having guests on to discuss their very own shit creek and how they got out. So, send us your stories of resilience and bouncing back stronger to shitcreekpodcast@gmail.com. And we can either share your story anonymously or we can have you on the show if you want to share it yourself. So your finished, starting, or continuing story could help somebody right now. God
Could
is
help us.
literally do what?
Could help us. Could help
Yeah,
me. I'm like I
absolutely.
said, I'm just beginning a next chapter. Thinking about my continued growth and healing. Something you could say could help me get another step in there too. Some things that you said to me during the podcast have helped. So whoever emails us and tells us their stories could be another one that helps me as well. So hey, let's help each other.
Yeah, we
All
have
of
to
us.
remember that we're only using the tools that we know when we're looking at our situation. There is more of a chance that someone else has a tool that will work for the situation than we already have one. Otherwise, we would have used it already, right?
More tools
So
for the toolbox, as they say.
more tools for the tool belt. So God is literally putting you through something in your life so you can reach back and grab somebody else. It does not define you. It's just where you are right now. So again, send us your stories to shitcreekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website at www.shitcreeksurvivors.com. Follow us on social media. We're in Facebook and Instagram at SHT Creek Survivors, or follow me personally at Cameron.mckay.36 on Facebook and Instagram. And again, thank you so much for joining us for season 1. Please share what you've heard with others. Please refer the podcast to anyone you know that could potentially use it for their benefit. May God bless you this holiday season and stand by for season 2. And all glory goes to my Savior Jesus Christ, who saved my life and who is holding out his hand waiting for you to grab it. I love you, brother. Thank you so much for doing this with me, and I look forward to
Amen.
season 2.
Hey, I love you too, brother. I hope to see you soon. Hope you come. You're coming to town, so let's meet up.
I'll be there tomorrow. I'm on my way.
All right. I'm looking forward
ATL
to
to
it.
ATL to STL. I'm on my
All
way.
right.
All right, buddy.
All right. See ya.